Well, I think we'll go ahead and get started. We have quite a few people online already. So welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us. My name is Bryn Lair, and I'm the Election Division Coordinator for the Candidate Services Division, and I'll be hosting this webinar today along with Christina Rivas-Louie, who is the Election Division Coordinator in Candidate Services. And Christina and I work in partnership with all of you to help get you through this election. So anytime you need our help, you just reach out to us. Other division heads that are presenting today will be Bob Nguyen from GIS Mapping, Liz Oviedo from Ballot Layout, Vicki Bituin from Fiscal. Oops, I'm gonna move this forward a little bit. Paulo Chang from Precinct Operations, Evelyn Mendez from Public Legislative Affairs, Julia Sines from Voter Registration, Alfred Gonzalez from Vote by Mail, and I also see Mike Fong here. He's from Election Logistics and Voting Systems. And although he won't be actually making a formal presentation, he is available in case you have questions regarding any voting equipment. So thank you, Mike, for helping out with that. So what I wanted to start out with was having Shannon Boucher, Virginia Bloom, and if Mike or Matt Morales is also online. Shannon is our Registrar of Voters, as you all know, and then Virginia Bloom, Assistant Registrar of Voters, and Matt Morales, another Assistant Registrar of Voters, to introduce themselves. Go ahead, Shannon.
Sorry, I had to get my mute button undone. Hi, everybody. It's good to see you and hear your voices, and I look forward to hearing more as we go into questions. So thank you, Bryn, for still allowing a method, a way that you and we could all meet with all of the districts and superintendents and cities and school boards and everybody, because it's very important, the information we have. So thank you for making PowerPoint slide, a webinar that they could view on their own time, and being able to have a live conversation so we can answer questions. I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Some of you know me. I've been around in this department for about 25 years now, and actually worked in candidate services for about 16 years of that. So some of you are familiar with me, and hello to people I know, and hello and welcome to the ones that are new and started since I've left that division about 8 years ago. So very happy to have you work with us. And I want to say that I really think that you will be happy with the service that you're going to receive from Candidate Services, because Bren, Christina, Patricia, Ralph, and Brian are awesome, and they get many compliments about their customer service. So I think you will find that they're very helpful, and they're always open to your questions that you have, because there's a lot of laws and rules and regulations that you have to follow for this. And we have our own guidelines and rules on how you count words at city clerk's offices, etc. So we're very happy to help answer any questions that you have. So I just wanted to say hello. I won't keep you too long, but I would like to take another minute to just tell you about the November election, kind of what I know as of today, because it is changing. So the governor has put out 2 executive orders to date. The first executive order said basically that every voter in California will be mailed a ballot, and then we'll get you the rest of the information later by the end of May. So that executive order doesn't really affect us much, because we already switched to, as you know, Voters' Choice Act in the March election. So we already mail every voter a ballot. So that was fine with us. So then the other executive order just came out, I think it was last week, with some more information about vote centers as we did. We had 114 vote centers in March. So they are still keeping the same rule at this point. Remember, this is as of today, keeping the same rule of 1 vote center per 10,000 voters. So that means that we're looking at least having 100 vote centers for Santa Clara County. In the executive order, he was also talking about the vote centers being open a minimum of 4 days. In the last election, we had to have about 88 that were open for the 4 days, but we had 22 more that were open for 11 days total. So we're still determining in our office the number of vote centers that we may open for more than 4 days. So I can't give you that concrete information today, but we will be deciding that and letting everyone know soon as we get some more information, because also there's a senator and assembly member who have pending legislation out there. So that is changing quickly also, and we're waiting for what the final legislation is and will be. It may extend the date to register to vote. It may extend the date for people to return ballots, postmark +3, etc. So point being, right now we know we're mailing everyone a ballot. We know we are having in-person voting. We're looking at this point, 100 vote centers, unless this legislation changes it, and waiting for legislation to come out to tell us some of the other decisions that are going to be made. So just to give you what I know as of today. So welcome everyone, and sorry I might have taken a little longer than expected, Bren, but I just wanted to update them on November. So
Thank you very much, Shannon. So I see Virginia. Got to unmute.
I am so happy that all of you are here to participate in this process. Can everybody hear me? I want to make sure. Okay, good. I want to share with you that we were fortunate enough to find Bren when we had an opening for the manager position in candidate services. I know a lot of you already know Bren, former city clerk. I as well am a former city clerk, so I want to share with you that between Bren, I, and Shannon, we've got probably over 100 years worth of experience doing elections and candidate filing, and we really look forward to working with you in this process. We ask your patience because it is going to be different this time, but we welcome your feedback as to our processes and how we might be able to improve this process, and we're here to serve you. So please do not hesitate to call us. If you have any questions, if you need anything from us, we are happy to help. So welcome aboard. Thank you.
And Matt, are you online by chance?
I don't see his name.
Okay, and I have to apologize. My my PowerPoint's going a little crazy, so I'm trying to get control of it. So, well, Matt Morales, I just wanted to give a shout out to him too. He is our other registrar of voters. And I don't know, maybe Shannon or Virginia might want to speak more too about what he does, but he essentially works with all the other divisions that Virginia doesn't. So,
yeah, Matt.
Yeah, go ahead, Shannon. I'll let you speak to that.
Yes, Matt's been here, I think, for over 15 years too, and he's handled many areas in our department, and he's currently on the operations side of handling our election logistics, voting systems, our precinct operations where they hire vote centers, etc., vote by mail. So it's kind of Matt and Virginia have split most of the divisions. I have about 3, and then they've split the rest and have 4 or 5-ish each. So that's probably about it.
thank you, Shannon. So we'll go ahead and get started then. I just wanted to provide a few housekeeping thoughts for everybody to keep in mind that, of course, please keep your mics muted until the end. But however, we can unmute you if you start talking and people can't hear. So we'll be kind of watching that to make sure we help you guys out with that as well. Feel free to use the chat. Many of you have already started using that feature. Post your questions there, and so hopefully someone will get online and answer those questions as soon as possible. But of course, there will be opportunities at the end of each of the presentations. So we just ask that you hold your questions until either the end of the presentation, the division presentation, or the end of the webinar itself, and then we can address questions as they come up. And this is also being recorded. All materials will be posted online and available for everybody to go back and review and refresh, and hopefully it will give you those resources in case you can't get in touch with us as well. Okay, so moving on. So I also wanted to just point out that this group, again, is very, very large. We consist of city clerks, special districts, and school districts. So there's quite a few different types of districts that are being presented to today. We also have quite a few registrar of voters, department heads, and other staff that are here to help answer your questions. Some of the questions that you might have may be just specific to a special district or a city, so we will address those individually. So be sure to be aware that some questions may not apply to your district, or some answers may not apply. Our presentations are approximately about 5 to 10 minutes long. Each of the division heads will be presenting their presentations. And again, please consider using the chat to ask questions, and we will get back to you as soon as possible. So jumping into candidate services, some of the upcoming deadlines you all should be aware of. July 1 is when governing board resolutions need to be submitted to the ROV. We do highly encourage you all to get your resolutions in early so that we can timely review and process those and ensure all the information that you have is accurate and ready for us to process. The nomination period opens at 8:00 a.m. on July 13th, and it runs through August 7th until 5:00 p.m. If an incumbent does not file, then that office will go into extension for an additional 5 days, and that period is August 8th through August 12th. Measure resolutions are due by August 7th at 5:00 p.m. Arguments are due by August 11th by 5:00 p.m. Rebuttals are due on August 18th by 5:00 p.m. and impartial analysis are due from the cities on August 18th. We will do the impartial analysis for the special districts. Our county council does the impartial analysis for special districts and school districts. An amended abbreviated calendar that is far more comprehensive than what I'm providing you now is also on our website. So that will provide way more deadline due dates, as well as other information that is very important for everyone to understand. I did send that out earlier, but keep in mind these do get updated periodically, so check back to the website to make sure that you have a most updated version of that calendar. The other thing that I wanted to point out, just a few things that we are implementing here due to the guidelines that we were provided by the governor's orders on the COVID pandemic, in order to keep not only the candidates safe, but also ROV staff safe, is we already have, and many of you already do have, plastic sneeze guards installed at the front counter. We will be issuing PPE for every candidate or visitor that comes into the ROV. We'll set up 2 kiosks with laptops so your candidates can come in. They can review and file nomination documents with our staff So they should be in their clean environment there as well, because we'll keep cleaning those kiosks down after and before each of the visitors come in. We're able to now issue nomination documents electronically. They can be issued those through either in person, through a secured OneDrive folder. They can be printed out and given to them at the front counter, but we're hoping that everybody will do this electronically. Written copies have a tendency to be difficult sometimes to read people's printing, so we're highly encouraging people to fill out the documents electronically and type in the information. But again, we can mail them by USPS mail. We can work with the candidate through a Zoom meeting as well, either at home or in the office. That's what the kiosks are for. So that will be available to them. And then we just need to have the candidate provide us with a authorization to do that first. We can't do that until we do that, until we get that authorization to what their preference is for receiving those nomination documents. They can also have somebody else provide or pick up those documents, but we need an authorization form for another person. So they have to first say, we want this type of preference, and then if somebody else is picking them up, we need that form as well. I think that is about it for those new processes. What is my thing? My apologies, you guys. This thing keeps moving on its own. I'm trying to get back here. Okay. So, moving on to governing board elections. It's important when you submit your resolutions that there's certain information included in those resolutions. So we do need to have you call for and request the county consolidate with the statewide election, acknowledge the election to be held and be conducted in a manner prescribed. And including that, you'd want to list the number of offices to be filed and the term lengths, such as, will the candidates be elected at large or by division as well. The candidate statements of qualifications, that information should include the number of required words. Is it going to be 200 or 400 words? Who pays for that? Will that be the candidate or the district? And if a deposit is required. When submitting a current map, and Bob Nguyen, hopefully he's online. Yeah, I see him. He'll be speaking more to this, but kind of a new thing that we've been helping Bob out with is working with everybody, all the districts, to receive mapping information. It's been really helpful to that end, so that we ensure, or Bob's division ensures, that your districts and your mapping and everything on that level is in good order, because it deals with a lot other issues going on, and Bob will get into that later. So please remember that what he needs are file formats and APN info. So the Office of Resolution of City Annexation and Parcel Transfers from LAFCO, current jurisdiction boundaries in a GIS data format, such as a shapefile or a feature class in a geodatabase, list of property parcels, whether it be residential or commercial, and then the boundaries that are included, such as with the APNs and the addresses attached for each of those APNs. Also, keep in mind that the maps and the shape files or the data files, they don't need to be included in the resolution. We just need to have them included when you send the adopted resolution to us, so that we can forward that information over to Bob. But it's even better if you, when you send your resolution information, to just CC us if you have your mapping information, or excuse me, CC Bob on that email when you have your mapping information included. That way he gets it automatically. So another thing to include in your resolution is to determine the method for which, if you're going to, method for determining a tie, is it going to be a runoff or by lot? This information does not apply to cities, so you don't need to be concerned with that because you are your own filing officer. Also, please specify names of all the current board members and their terms, and if they're full or short term, and the seats, if they were elected by district or at large. The reason why we need this information is in order to update our office holder lists and other records in our area, so to ensure we have all current information for you on record. You all received an information sheet earlier this year. That is also very important for us to receive, again, for contact information. If we have follow-up questions, we need to be able to get back with you all to ask questions and follow up, and do it before your deadline is due. So you'll have opportunities to give us that information and make sure your resolutions are whole. Another option that you have is what's called the measure letter justification form. Many of you may have already used this in the past, but essentially what that does is it allows the individual or the jurisdiction to request to have a different letter, but this only applies in consistent elections. So for instance, if when the randomized alpha drawing comes up and you receive an A again, and your last measure, the election prior to was an A, then you can request to be a B. So we can certainly consider that, and we'll work through that with you. But we need to have that letter included. On measures, the information that you'll need to include in your measure is very similar to the candidate measuring or candidate resolution calling for an election. That would include you to call your election and request for the county to consolidate, acknowledge the election to be held and conducted, list in the resolution the date of your election, the type of election, such as if it's you need it to be at a vote center, or if it's an all-mail ballot. Those are typically special elections, as well as the purpose of your election. Is it a parcel tax? Is it a bond? Is it a charter amendment? So make sure you include all of that information as well. The measure question should be no longer than 75 words. Please also include what the passage rate is going to be. Is it going to be like, do you need a 2/3 vote, a majority vote, 55% vote? What's also very important, especially for ballot layout, is do you need the full text printed to be printed in the sample ballot? And while we're doing that, we'll be working with you to determine where your start of the measure, where the measure starts and where that measure word text ends. Again, that is very important for us to understand that information for ballot layout, so they know everything that goes into their systems for the ballots. For school boards, please be sure to include any bond measure information and specify whether or not you have a tax rate statement. And if you do have a tax rate statement, please include that in your resolution, send that with your resolution. We also need to know if state matching funds apply. Not that this needs to be included in the resolution, but we do, with the exception to cities, need to have information related to the newspaper to publish your notice of election So please either email that to us, provide it on the information sheet. I'm going to be updating that so we include that in the future. But you'll want to include that so we know what that information is, or we're going to be reaching back out to you to get that. Typically what we use is the San Jose Post record. So if we do not hear from you, that's where it will go. If you have a preference in your local district that you want it to be in, we need to know that information. Okay. Moving on to, we're almost done, guys. Moving on to the rules for counting words. So here's a good example of a candidate statement and the rules for counting words. I won't go through all of those, but you'll also, and your candidate, depending on if it's a measure or a candidate statement, will receive an email that will ask for author review. So within, the candidate will need to endorse their statement as to their, they'll need to endorse their statement and just ensure that the information that was provided originally is what is still there, is correct. But unfortunately, that information cannot be changed. And Liz Oviedo from Ballot Layout will also address this a little bit more later on in the presentation. Oops, going the wrong way. Okay. It's also very, very important that information be delivered to us in a timely manner. So if you do mail your information to us, we can certainly get started on reviewing it. And then once we get that, it has to be the Office of the Board of Supervisors or the clerk of the board will need to receive an original resolution, and the ROV or candidate services will need to receive a certified copy of that resolution. And so you'll need to drop that off. The Board of Supervisors address is at 70 West Heading Street, 10th floor, East Wing, San Jose, 95110, and ROV address is at 1555 Burger Drive, Building 2, San Jose, 95112. So just be sure that your original resolutions get to the Board of Supervisors before the deadline and a certified copy to us, okay? Okay. Okay, so Liz Oviedo will also be speaking more to the counter voter information guide process in her presentation, but candidates will also go through that with, as I alluded to earlier, with the measure election. So it's pretty much the same process, so I won't go over that again.
Fran, did you want to stop and take some questions? We see quite a bit on the chat.
Christina should be, if you're not, are you addressing those questions, Christina, as they come in? Okay.
Not all of them. So if we could for the group.
I could, and I'm almost through with I have 2 more slides, if that's okay to get through the rest of the information, or we could stop now.
Sure, go ahead.
Okay, so the office holder filing obligation it's very important for certain forms, FPPC forms, to be filed. And one form, the first form that needs to be filed, of course, is the file. Well, actually, it's not the first form, but the Form 470 is an office holder statement. So if a office holder does not have an open committee, they just filed this form by no later than July 31st. However, there's a requirement that if they have a receive a stipend of over 200 or more, then they file it. If the candidate wants to open a committee, they also need to file a 501 candidate intention statement. And then once they start receiving contributions of $2,000 or more, then the candidate would file their Form 410. The original would need to go to the Secretary of State and then a copy to the ROV. And then they also would start filing their Form 460. The other thing that we're also allowing, because the FPPC is allowing this as well, is that the individuals can submit their files electronically and then, or their forms electronically and then mail in their forms. So as long as we receive what we need to receive of all the original forms, we can receive those by mail or drop off later. But in order to get them in timely, they can email them to us as well. And then, of course, the candidate does need to be eligible to run. So they must contact us to verify their voter registration and eligibility. Cities and certain special districts, there's only, I think, 2 or 3 special districts that do this on their own. Essentially, they call us and then we, because they're their own filing officer, they would call us and we can verify it for them. Otherwise, the candidate would come in directly to or call the office directly to do that. We do prefer email verification processes, but we certainly will allow calls or other, forms of in-person if that's their choice too. So, and that's it. And this thing is moving so fast. So how about some questions? What kind of questions do you guys want us to address right now, just on candidate services?
Well, hi, this is Shannon. I'm trying to answer one of the questions for from the, maybe is that Sunnyvale School District, about, yes, the resolution go to the clerk of the board and the ROB, but they asked, what does it mean when it's a certified copy? And I was just typing an answer, so good timing. I think it's when the governing board member at the school district like attests that it's a true and correct copy. Is that correct?
That's correct. Yeah, it's just a stamp. It's a copy of the original resolution, and then you stamp it that the deputy or the city clerk certifies that this is a true original certified copy.
And for the city clerks out there, your process will not change. You can still do your things via email. Somebody asked that. And I'll stop talking now.
Any other questions?
Are we supposed to be raising our hands to ask questions?
I can't see all of everyone's pictures, so I would just say chime in when you get an opportunity and we'll go that direction.
Okay, this is Kirsten Scorsha from Cupertino. I have a question about the district map that's to be provided with the resolution or beforehand, it looks like, according to the code. I believe our office has already sent something back in November to the ROV. Is that the same map possibly that would have been requested by your office? It was delivered by, it was printed on paper, sent to us, and then we signed off on it and then mailed it back.
That's the same information. That is correct. That's the same
Okay.
information. If you've already provided it to us, then we don't need it again.
Great, thank you.
Unless there is any change to the city boundary, then you may need to send the resolution or the partial transfer document to us.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Can I jump in real quick, Bob? If we
Yes.
have an annexation, what is the deadline for the annexation? Is there a deadline if we're in the process of one right now?
For the annexation, anything that we receive after the 125 days prior to the election, that will be postponed until the election is certified.
Thank you.
And then Bren, someone's asking about when the city clerk, hi Mary, is when they're gonna get the estimates for the candidate statements sent to them?
That's coming in the guide. So the guide should be out. We're still, we just finished up pretty much all of our review. We've got a couple more things going on. And as soon as that's done, I'm going to be posting that guide online. And I'm hoping that'll come this week. But we're still waiting on a couple more pieces of information. Although I think we can send it out. I don't see why not. Is that
Would you
okay?
please send it to the city clerks if that's possible?
Yeah, well, all jurisdictions. I could probably send just a copy of that out.
Well,
Thank you.
definitely for the cities. Oh, that's great if you're adding city information into your guide, because normally the city prices aren't in the guide, so that's great. So
I believe it is, right, Christina? The city estimates are in the guide?
they weren't before, so I'm just curious if it's
You're
changed.
muted, Christina. Okay, so it's not apparently, but we can get that.
We want that number so we can charge correctly to our candidates. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah. It's okay. We'll go ahead and get something out to the cities. I'll get that emailed. So Bob, did you want to, was there any more questions before we go on to our next presentation?
One more question. You mentioned the guide. I'm also used to getting a packet of forms that you want us to have our candidates fill out. Are those coming out as a part of the guide? Are they being sent separately, or?
Are you with the school district?
City of Cupertino.
City, okay. So I have created fillable forms, and I'm happy to share that with the city clerks as well if you all want to use those forms. I'm going to be also holding a candidate school so that everyone knows how to fill out those forms, but essentially it's a everything in one stop shop packet. So, and it's all electronically filled out, and it makes it a little bit easier to process and print and do all that other stuff, and make sure we have all the correct forms for all the different types of contests that that are going on. So those will be available soon, and I can easily get those out to everybody, as well as invite all the cities to that candidate school. The school districts will actually have their own. They are scheduled for June 27th to have their own candidate school, but I do intend to have one or two other candidate schools for the different districts, cities, special districts. Candidates are welcome to join that as well.
Thank you.
I do have one. I just was hoping to piggyback on Christina responded to a question about, sorry, this is Kirsten again with Cupertino, regarding cities not being required to provide tiebreaker information on the resolutions. If it's not provided and there is an instance of a tiebreaker, can the legislative body then adopt a resolution to conduct a special runoff election at that point?
It's up to them.
Okay.
I think that's a legal question that,
Okay.
Kirsten, you should check with your legal counsel at your school district, because, you know, honestly, I just don't know offhand if it's required or not. I will trust what staff are telling you, but, you know, you could, I don't know if your city typically does that, but definitely check with your legal counsel But I know that people have, you know, given us the answer up front. And yes, if they had circled a runoff election on our circle your option choice, that they would then usually call, you know, for another election with a resolution. But again, it's got to be answered by the legal counsel.
Okay. All right. And then do you happen to have a rough estimate of what a special runoff would be for 2 council seats?
So
1 seat, I guess. It would just be a tie for.
$5 million. No, I'm just kidding. And I haven't got to work with you before, Kristen. So I'm not sure how new you are with this, but we have a great, Vicki on the line is our fiscal officer. And our fiscal division is great that they provide any district an estimate. Usually a district will, you know, tell them what election, because sometimes they're looking for a special election, a special mail ballot election. So if you send her an email about that you're asking for a cost estimate for, you know, you name what it's for, 1, 5 offices, whatever it is, and which election for the November election, they can get you one. And if you all could try to give as much time for that as possible, it could take 2 days to do, it could take a week to do, it could take 10 days, all depending on the workload as those requests come in. So the sooner people get in the request, the better. And I will say, just remember everyone that those are estimates. We do our best to provide you the estimates up front. Could be slightly higher, slightly lower. You know, we've given refunds, you know, it just, and I think actually fiscal division normally only collects like 70% or something up front, so that there's usually probably not a lot of refunds, but if there are, Vicki can answer that. But if you send her an email, they will definitely get you an estimate. I recommend districts do that, cities do that, so you have an idea, because you know, our elections are quite expensive, but we have a lot of work to do for all of you cities and school districts that contract with us. So
Thank you.
Brenda, I think the chat has been disabled because I'm not able to put anything on there.
Let me look into that. How about that?
That fixed it.
Okay. All right. Well, is there any other questions before we move on to mapping?
This is Debbie from the city of Saratoga. I had one question about that information page that you wanted when we send in our resolution.
Yes.
Where do we find that?
I can send it back out to you all again if you need that, or it was originally included in the resolution when I sent out the templates, but those didn't go out to the cities. So I can send that out.
normally the city, I mean, if you'd like to, that's great. Again, like Brent said in the beginning of the seminar, some of this applies to some of you and not to others. And I know sometimes it can be difficult to know the difference, but that info sheet was something she sends out to all the school and special districts.
Oh, okay, so if the city doesn't need it, that's fine. I just wanted to make sure I was crossing my T's and dotting my I's.
Yeah,
it would be helpful for us, but just so we have your current information. So I'll just send it out to all the cities again, and then you guys can send it in. That would be just helpful for our records. Okay, any other questions? Okay, then I will move on. Bob, if you want to start your presentation, just let me know when you're ready for me to move to the next slide and I'll click it for you.
Actually, I just want to point out a couple of things, Brent. You don't need to show the PowerPoint presentation. From the beginning of the meeting, I sent a note with the URL link to the county parcel data. It is a free download, and the county ISD department, they update the parcel daily. So this partial data is very accurate. So I would advise you, if you think about redistricting for your district, for your city, then please download this data set here. It's very precise, and this is what we do when we review your data. So download this information, overlay with your current city district boundary, and see how you come up with the solution when you do the redistricting. Also, if I may share some of the screen here, let me see. Brent, may I share some of the screen here?
Yeah, go ahead.
I don't know if you see this or not. These are some of the information that we see from different districts in the past. What happened is we using the district boundary that we collected from everyone. We overlaid it on the same screen, and you see, like right here, we are able to identify the discrepancies between two different school districts, which you are not able to see it due to the.
Can everybody see his screen? Okay, let me see. I think we need to do something different. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a minute. Can you share yours?
I think I did share my screen. Can you see it?
No, we can't see it yet.
Let me see.
Try it now. I think I gave you permission.
Okay. Okay, can you see my screen now?
Okay.
Can you see it? Please let me know if you can see my screen right now.
We can see it. Everybody can see it, Bob.
Okay. So on this map here, as you can see, we have the advantage than anyone else that we have different data set from different schools, and we put them together on the same map. And we are able to identify the discrepancies between two different school districts that the school district officials cannot see it, since you only have the information for the school only. So in this area right here, for example, this is one of the old maps that we have. You can see that there is a discrepancy of the Moreland School District and the Saratoga Unified School District in this area here. So that's one of the advantage why we need to request for your GIS data. And this is another screen that I want to show it to you. This is similar idea. We overlay the Campbell Union High School District, and then we using the accesses partial data. We highlight them in different color shade. So you can see, like the school district here, they said this this goal extended to here, but in fact the county assessors saying different things. So the data should match with the county assessors, because we using the county assessors as a guideline to map the school district, or to correct the school district boundaries. So if you have a partial transfer, then please make sure that you forward your information to the county assessors so they can record it correctly. And so the next time we upload the county assessors data, we can see exactly what's going on. Otherwise, like I have mentioned, we using the county assessors for the guidelines. So in this particular area here, then we don't have any choice except to conform with the school district to tell us what's going on, and then asking for more information, more official transfer documents, that kind of thing, to make sure that your district change will be updated in our election system. This is another example here. As you can see, the information you provided when we mapped it, a lot of times it cut through the parcel, which very hard to identify. As you know, one single parcel might affect like a few voters who register under that address. So help us to map it correctly is another way to ensure that the voters, they can vote accordingly based on their contest, based on their voting right, and that would be very helpful to us. So for example, in this screen here, you can see your map. It cut through this parcel here, which we do not know whether or not I should include the parcel with the last three numbers, 024, 025, and 023 in the district or not. That's so help us to identify, because we do not know your parcel. We are not the owner of the data, so we need your guidance. And the only thing we can do is we review it and ask for your feedback. Sometimes we, due to the volume of the data coming in, we might not be able to detect the data due to the accuracy of the data when you provide the information to us. It's hard to see in a small scale like this. So sometimes when the voter receives the ballots and calling us why I'm not voting for this district, in fact, that I pay taxes for that school district. So when we make the correction during the election cycle, then we have to go through a lot of process to make sure they are corrected in the election system and that kind of thing. So please help us to provide the information as accurate as you can. If you need any additional assistance or you need any historical data, then please talk to us so we can provide you the information we have, and you can compare to what you have in your system. And that's all I have. Thank you, Brent.
Thank you, Bob. Any questions regarding mapping? That was a lot of information, Bob.
Yeah, and I understand this, Shannon. It's a lot of technical information, so thank you, Bob. But if any of you in your districts, like those maps you got months ago, someone mentioned they got it in November, please have your GIS people, mapping division, planning, look over them, because you all have to sign off that the boundaries are correct. So thanks, Bob.
And sometimes, you know, the data that you provided back years ago, and they reference to the old oak tree or the corner of the stone. Due to the seismic movement, the stone is not there, the oak tree is burned down by the wildfires, that kind of thing. So it's very difficult to reference it with the old hard copy map of 8.5 by 11. And we cannot see everything with that tiny little map. So mistakes might happen if we continue receiving that information. So I'm asking for your help.
And we are happy to help also. If you have questions, you can't get in touch with Bob, we're happy to help get that information to him. If you're sending resolutions or whatever and you have mapping questions, just send to Candidate Services. We can get it to Bob. But again, if possible, put his email in there, CC him so he gets that information too. It's really helpful. So if there's no more questions, we'll move on to ballot layout with Liz Oviedo.
Hello, everyone. I'm just gonna wait for the PowerPoint presentation to come up in the screen.
Share my screen back again. My apologies.
Thank you. So I am Liz Oviedo, Election Division Coordinator for the Ballot Layout Division. Lillian Tsai is here joining us. She is the Acting Election Process Supervisor. We're both very grateful for this opportunity. Next slide, please. The Ballot Layout Division is responsible for the production of the official ballots and county voter information guides. The guides are printed in the 5 federally mandated languages of English, Chinese, Spanish, Vietnamese, and Tagalog. Next slide, please. The official ballots include optical scan paper ballots, accessible touchscreen, and audio ballots, remote accessible ballots for the military, overseas, and visually impaired voters. Translated versions of the ballots will be available to voters in the languages of Chinese, Spanish, Vietnamese, Tagalog, Hindi, Japanese, Khmer, and Korean to comply with federal and state mandates. Facsimile copies of the ballots will be produced in Punjabi, Gujarati, Tamil, Telugu, and Nepali due to recent mandates, and we'll be producing them in compliance with Election Code 14201. Next slide, please. The declaration of candidacy and language forms, candidate statements, and all measure documents are copied, scanned, and converted into Word files. We format documents and perform multiple rounds of proofs. In the November 2018 election, we produced 275 unique ballot types, 230 candidate statements, and 32 local measures were published in our guides. We anticipate that these numbers are going to be significantly higher in the upcoming election. Next slide. And I just want to, you see in the screen candidate statement of qualifications, and Bren mentioned she's going to provide some of these forms. Sometimes the jurisdiction name is not, like if it's done in the office, it's typed, but sometimes it is written by the candidates. So it is very important to check their jurisdiction name. So the declaration and candidates of candidacy and language forms and the candidate statement forms and all documents, sometimes they have handwritten information. So it is very important that if there's any handwritten information that that we make sure that is clear. Next slide, please. Okay. All documents are formatted with standard headings. So for measures, we have a standard heading based on guidelines. We need to know, as Bren mentioned before, where the text begins and when the text ends. Otherwise, we have to ask. For maps and images, we need JPEG or TIFF files. And the reason why is because if we get a blurry map that is part of our measure and it's not very clear, we cannot use that for printing because the quality wouldn't be good. So if the forms have titles, like the signers of arguments and rebuttals, we want to make sure that it's clear, clearly marking the forms. Handwritten names of the signers and the titles, if they're not legible, or let's say the gender is not present, we're going to ask, because for translations, we need to know the gender information. And so we will ask candidate services, and then candidate services would have to reach out to the jurisdictions. Next slide, please. The author review process provides an opportunity for jurisdictions to sign off on documents. When our English format is finalized, our division will email candidates' statements and measure documents to all the jurisdictions for approval. Jurisdictions are given about 24 hours to review and sign off on documents. And as Bren mentioned before, so this would be an opportunity to review and match what was submitted at the time of filing. But in this opportunity won't be to change anything. So if typos are found in this stage, there's nothing we can do. It's just verifying that we are publishing what was submitted. So this is all I have, and thank you very much. Feel free to contact us or write a message if you have any questions. Thank you very much.
Anyone have any questions for Liz? No questions? If not, we'll go on to Vicki Bituin with our fiscal division.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Vicki Bituin, and thank you for joining us in today. I also have Trin Dow, my accountant, my accountant 3, who's also joining us in this Zoom telecast. If you have questions for us, feel free to shoot us an email on the ROV fiscal group that is showing on the screen right now. And you can also reach us via phone or our individual emails, but we suggest that you send it to us to the group email. In that way, anyone in our team can answer your questions as soon as we can or right away. Okay, thank you so much. And can we move to the next slide, please?
And thank you, Vicki. This is Shannon. It looks like you'd like them to send that top email you had would be where they send the election cost estimates that we were talking about earlier. Okay, I'm sure you're going to get flooded with them. Great.
Yes. We are actually expecting a lot of emails, email inquiries about election cost estimates, which has started for the past few weeks now, and moving forward to the next few weeks. Okay, so the fiscal division is actually responsible for all accounting aspects of the department, particularly in providing cost estimates, as what we've mentioned earlier. At the end of the election, we bill the jurisdictions for any services that we would have provided the public or the jurisdictions. Like what I've said, the next few slides will detail the different fee charges that we recently got approved by the Board of Supervisors last January. Okay, let me see. So the slide that you see right now talks about the base charges that we bill for the primary and general elections to the cities, school districts, and special districts. There's a fee that we charge per registered voter on the first item on the ballot. That is at $2.66. And if there are any additional items on the ballot, we would charge them 76 cents. And then this would also include, we will also be charging cost of legal publications and the ballot printing for 9 languages. A2 talks about special elections that are being called by jurisdictions. This is other than the primary and the general elections. We actually charge the jurisdictions asking for those special elections based on the actual cost that we would incur. This is labor, which is based on the time studies that are being submitted to us, and then any services and supplies and indirect costs that are eventually computed after each election. And this only have. Next slide, please.
Just Vicki, just so you know, you're breaking up just slightly, so there may be some questions.
Okay, so bear with me. Okay, so next slide shows the minimum charges that we would be billing jurisdictions participating in a primary or general election. These are the minimum charges, 6,182 per jurisdiction per contest, plus the cost of legal, publications, and public printing for 9 languages. Now, there are some jurisdictions who may not go into the ballot or election due to insufficient nominees. So there's a minimum charge that they will also have to incur, and we will be billing them $2,048 per special district for each contest. Next slide, please. The next slide shows the different charges for the voter information, which pertains to measure pages. The measure pages contains the full text, the impartial analysis, which is for and against, then the arguments for and against, and the rebuttals for and against. So you'll see the different charges that we would be billing, or the different fixed fee schedules that we will be billing depending on the number of words of a particular page. And then we will also be charging jurisdictions for fixed costs, which we will be discussing at the later slides. Next slide, please. This slide talks about the candidate statements pages on the voter information. This is the first one is A6.1 talks about the Superior Court judges, which is 1% of their annual salary per quarter page of the 200 words. And then A6.2 to A6.4, this varies on the different on the number of words that a candidate statement may contain. We have different fixed fee amounts also, and then this also include the cost of printing the candidate statement in the civics. The fixed fee will also be discussed at a later slide. Okay, next slide. This talks about the research and compilation services, wherein we have a minimum charge of $95, and each additional time there will be a $95 charge per half hour increment. And then A8 talks about the certification services, wherein we charge $88 per certificate. And then item B, this talks about the miscellaneous voter and election information fees, wherein electronic versions of the voter file and other miscellaneous election information are based at a $129 flat fee. Moving on to the next slide. We have the vote by mail voter information. Initial request on an electronic version would be about $129, and subsequent updates to this, whether daily or weekly, would be a charge of $65. Next Next slide. Now we talk about for printing of black and white maps on an 11 by 17 ledger size. These maps, individual maps, would cost you about $5. And then the original D2 talks about the original standard printer or plotter maps, which are produced in different sizes also. There's a setup fee of $73, and then depending on the size of the paper or of the map, we have the different dollar amounts per page for each individual size. Okay, moving on to the next one. We have the custom maps. There's a $142 setup fee, and then depending on the size of the map, we also have different charges per page. Now D4 talks about digital maps or standard individual maps, wherein there's a setup fee of $73 and then $3 per map. D5 talks about the digital maps that are custom maps by district, $142 for setup fee and $3 for each map. Next page. Statement of votes. These are copies of special and photocopies of special and parts of the primary or general elections statement of votes. So we charge 10 cents per page. And then on the registration affidavits and postage, we charge 10 cents a page for any photocopy of the affidavits. And then we also have the printed copy of scanned affidavits. These are not the certified ones, but scanned copies. They start at 10 cents a page. And then for postage and handling, we charge the actual cost of the postage. Next slide. For FPPC, or the Fair Political Practice Commission reports, we charge 10 cents per page also on copies that are being requested. And if there are any information that are requested for retrieving those information that are more than 5 years old, we charge $5 per request plus 10 cents per copy. And then any additional photocopies or document copies that are being requested, photocopies, they cost 10 cents a page. Next slide. Now we have also other miscellaneous services that we have been busy working on, especially on the petition signature verification. We charge actual labor based on the time studies and indirect costs that are being presented to us. We also charge jurisdictions for any redistricting that they request us to do. They connect with Bob on this one. So based on the actual labor costs on the time studies and indirect costs that are presented to us by the mapping division, we also charge them the cost of services and supplies in mailing the notices to all registered voters in the districts. Now we also have the recount. This is also based on the actual labor cost, based on time studies and indirect costs, plus the cost of services and supplies that are calculated in accordance with the elections code. Next slide, please. So earlier we talked about the cost of the candidate statement, wherein they charge you for a certain number of fixed costs per the number based on the number of words. So this is the fixed cost that we have for the costs for the candidate statements. We have 2,343 for 200 words, 3,516 for 400 words, plus the cost of printing per page per sample ballot that are being ordered on that particular statement. And this is based on the actual unit cost, printing cost, which ranges from about 0.0185 to 2 pennies a page. Then the next slide, we will be talking about the fixed cost on the measure pages that was discussed earlier also. based on the 800 words full page text, it would be about 7,405 plus the cost of the printing per page per sample ballot. And based on the actual printing cost, which is about 0.0185 to 0.0201 per page. So this this concludes our fee schedule. And if you have any questions relating to estimates, feel free to connect with us through rov-fiscal@rov.seccgov.org, which was showing on the first part of the slides for fiscal division. Like what Shannon said earlier, we have been bombarded with a lot of estimates on the upcoming elections. But feel free to send those inquiries also and additional and requests for estimates to the email address that we have provided. And depending on our workload, we will provide those information as soon as we can. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicki. Is there any questions from anybody for Vicki?
I have a question. It's Kirsten from the city of Cupertino again. I just want to confirm the estimate for the statement of qualifications, the candidate statement. The previous slide indicated 2343 for 200 words, but I had seen another amount or I've been provided with another amount previously that was 2860. Am I looking at two different?
Okay, was it?
Sorry?
Okay, was that for the 200 words also that is showing on the slide, or maybe it was for a higher number of words, maybe 250?
No, it was for the 200. But so just to confirm, so the 2343 is the actual cost for 200 words.
The fixed cost, yes.
Okay. All right.
But that's what I want to clarify, Kirsten. That's the fixed cost. And that may be the difference between an actual estimate you receive in your district.
I see.
Because there's the, whatever it was, 0.02 or whatever cents per page. And the bigger your district, the more costs that are added on to your fixed cost. So when Bren sends you the list of your candidate statement price, that'll be the price, because it's not just the fixed cost. We have to add in the actual, because there are districts that are 250,000 voters that are pages we're printing versus 30,000 voters, so the costs are different.
Okay. All right. I understand. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
It's on A. Okay, that's it.
Yes, thank you, Vicki. Unless there's more
you.
questions, then we'll move on to precinct operations. This is where the fun begins.
And for who? Hi, everybody. My name is Paulo Cheng, and I've met some of you again in the past. But so this is our team. This is me. There's Lance Noro and April Bracamonte. Lance actually will be out for the next few weeks. So if you need anything from us the next couple of weeks or even beyond that, please contact myself or April Bracamonte, and one of us will get back to you. So what we do here at Precinct Operations, we have all the fun with the elves, and that is we are the ones who find the vote centers to host the election. We have to find the staff to work at those elections, and then the staff has to be trained, so we'll do that. And then, of course, we and everybody else in this office provides election support throughout the election days, through election day. So this is our operations team. We're gonna have operations team on training. Operations is the team, the election specialists who go out there, scout, find the locations. For the first time, the March election, we actually had a contract, because what we did in the past, we had a simple form that the polling places, private homes would give us. We would just sign and be set. But because things have changed now so much in which we have to have a proper vote center, we had a contract. The training team, we have a training team too. Our election specialists provide training to anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 people working at the vote centers. And that's because for anyone to work at the vote centers, they have to be certified to work at the vote centers. And then they can be at the vote center to work, okay? Please, next slide. Okay, so we also have an outreach team. Our outreach team is Natalie Goldsby and Rachel Jung, all right? So we do have an email for them. If your school district, your city, your community, your municipality would like us to stop by and talk about the changes that we have now for the with the Voters' Choice Act, or education, voter registration, pre-registration, school events, any sort of talk, please let us know. You can email directly outreach@rov.sccgov.org. Okay, and there's an SC missing on that email, but you'll,
Yes, I just caught that.
yeah, I just saw that too. And then of course we also have outreach high school outreach for the students. This past March we had close to 300 students help us out working at the vote centers, and they all worked 2 days, either Saturday or Sunday, and then election day itself. And because they're stipend workers, we actually paid them about $245. So it's a great incentive for the high school students to help us out. We go to the schools, we work with many of your teachers, many of your school districts, and we present all these things. So usually the staff that does this in my office are Alaya Mims, Tempest Franklin, and Christina Santos. And we do have an email for them, and that is hi.school@rovsccgov.org. Okay, and I'll talk more about this as we go along. So next slide, please. Okay, so let me talk about the March elections. For March election, we had 114 vote centers. Out of these 114 vote centers, it was really a mix of different facilities. We did not use the polling places from the past because they're just too small, and they don't provide the safety and the width, the spaces that we need. So we ended up using many community centers, university halls, churches that were able to have a big fellowship hall we could use on a Sunday, and then of course school district offices. There were some schools we were not able to go to, but the school district was kind enough to allow us to use your offices, and that worked out just fine for us. And of course, as possible, we'll go to nonprofit centers. We also had 114 vote centers throughout the county. We pretty much split the county to 9 geographical areas and had many vote centers in each one of those areas. We tried to pick the better locations, but in the end, it comes down to what dates those facilities have available. And the dates have to cover not just election day, but the early voting days, plus the days for setup, and then the days for breaking up of all the supplies and returning them to the office. For the November presidential election, okay, as mentioned, Shannon mentioned earlier, we will most likely just have a 4-day, in fact, we'll have a 4-day election, so we will not have an 11-day election. So what happens is all of us in the county will be able to start voting at a vote center on October 31st. We're gonna have about 100 vote centers, and those will be starting on the 31st. We'll be setting up the day before, and of course we'll be there. You'll be able to vote Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then election day as needed. So traditionally, if it wasn't for the COVID pandemic, we'd have 2 full weekends to vote, but because of COVID, everyone in the state is voting early, a maximum of 4 days. Okay. Next, please. So a high school student volunteer program. So we had 383 students signed up. And before that, when we did the pre-registration, we had over 500 kids. Eventually, out of those 500, only 383 actually turned in their applications. And out of those 383, only 271 worked at the vote centers, which was a pretty good number, but we'd hope to bring that up even higher for future elections. Of course, now with the COVID-19 pandemic and the school situation being a little bit unsettled at the moment, we don't know how many high school students will be able to recruit. But in the end, we're happy to just go to those high schools, work with the teachers, civics teachers many times, and do our voter education presentations. We do a lot of voter registration drives, and of course, meet with the teachers and just going for talks and help that school as much as possible. Now, the high school students, they also have to be trained. And what we do is we train them half day, because all the volunteers that we have, or stipend volunteers, they still need to be certified to work at the vote center, but they will do a specific role, most likely that of being a greeter. In other words, when you walk into the vote center, there's going to be someone outside greeting you and making sure that you are ready to vote, or if you have any paperwork to complete, they'll put you in a separate line. Again, these are our high school coordinators. We do have direct email, hi.school@rov.sscgov.org, but I'll let you know that they haven't started working with us. We do have a pretty robust office here with us, but we do have a lot of seasonal workers. And in this case, both Alea, Tempest, and Christina will join us in a few weeks from now. But if you have any questions for the time being, please feel free to email me, Paulo Chang or April Bracamonte, and then we'll contact you and let the high school coordinators know of your questions for when they can make. Okay, next one, please. All right, so again, March 3rd, we in fact had or ended up having 1,600 staff working at the vote centers, and that's including the high school students, volunteers, stipend volunteers, and so forth. And all of those were absolutely needed because remember, before when you went and voted, you only had Tuesday to vote one day. But now we had up to 11 days of voting. So we needed to have enough staff to cover all those days. And in case someone did not show up one day, we'd have enough to replace them and be there so they could help the vote centers. At every vote center, we pretty much had 3 different roles. You have the lead or the person in charge, pretty much like an inspector. And then you had the clerk or election aide, which is someone that then is doing and processing the voters. Plus we had all the volunteers and high school volunteers. They are the ones we call typically the greeters. They are the ones that were there to assist controlling the crowd coming in and make sure that the voters knew what to do once they came inside. So all this information, and if anyone ever wants to apply, this information is on our website, okay, and that's bullet number 3. If you know anyone that is interested, if you have any bulletin boards at your school districts, at your offices, city halls, community centers, please let everybody know that we'll be hiring again for November. We're going to actually hire even more staff than we needed for March because now with the COVID pandemic, we need to make sure we have enough staff. Should someone start working on the 31st and then they call in sick the next day, I need to make sure I have enough people to go in and cover. So we need to hire a bunch of people, especially bilinguals. So please, if you have anyone that's interested or if you have a bulletin board in your digital board or any sort of board, please let them know that they can all come to our website and find information on our website. The difference is, of course, is that we no longer take the volunteers, or we take the volunteers, we process them here, but anyone else that is not a volunteer is actually an extra help staff that works for the county. So it actually becomes a part-time county employee, and for that reason, they have to go through a whole different process through, as you can see, bullet number 3, the Employee Service Agency, or ESA. So that is the agency that we have to, that anyone that's interested in working at the vote centers, apply with the county as an election worker 1 or election aide, and then ESA will process your application, approve them, and then forward the name to us here at the ROV, and we'll use that person to either work at the vote center or with us here in the office, depending on where the need is and how soon this person applies to work with us. Okay, so please help us recruit. We will be hiring more staff for the November election. Next slide, please, Brian. Okay, so classes. So classes actually start, our training team is already working. We are working on updating the manuals. We're ready to go. Our goal is to have everything ready for printing by the end of August. So at that point, we're gonna start with our train the trainer, who will then train up to 2,000 people to work at the vote centers. And for that, to train the classes pretty much will start at the end of August. That's at the end of August, I pretty much have to have, let's say, 2,000 people hired so that we can schedule them to come to a class. Usually, typically, leads come to a 7-day class, the clerks come to a 3-day class, and then all the volunteers, including high school students, they come to a 3-hour class or half-day class. Vote center work days, again, as we mentioned to you earlier, for this November election, and only for this November election, we will not have the 11-day vote centers as of now, okay, but we will have the 4-day sites, which means if it's a 4-day vote center, you'll be able to start voting on Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and then election day itself. But we'll need to set up the vote centers at least the Friday or Thursday before the 31st. And then election day, after election day, we'll still have to come back after election day to put away the equipment and then return everything back to our office. So that's typically what we do. And anytime there's an election day that you hear that's 4 days long, usually you have to attach a few days to early the process and late in the process. Yes, next, please. Okay, that was pretty much so. So Voters' Choice Act and technology. So what does the Voters' Choice Act means to me as a voter? Okay, let me just get my notes here, sorry. So what it means to the voter is basically that you have plenty of options. As a voter, automatically you are sent a VBM ballot. And we have a very robust VBM process because we've been doing this now for a while. We were already at 80% before March. Since March, we're at 100%, and we had a pretty good VBM election. So that allows the voters to just vote from home. Now with the pandemic, more important than ever, we're in the right track. Also, what it does is allows the voters to vote many days before, whereas before you were attached to just one day voting, you can actually vote. You can go vote with your family, the whole family, your parents, your siblings, and so forth, the weekend before if needed. But the best thing too is actually it also provides you the technology, which is the new on-demand printing of the ballot at the voting place that you choose to go. And this is because if you, let's say, live in one area of the county and then you work in a different area of the county, you can actually vote nearby your workplace and you'll be voting the ballot that you need to vote the correct ballot type, okay? Number two, as I said earlier, basically number two, again, everyone in the county will receive a prepaid return postage VBM ballot, and that one is sent to 100 voters in our county. And if I'm not wrong, that ballot will start being mailed out to everyone on October 5th, I think, okay? So starting October 5th, really, if you go check your mailbox a couple days later, you may find yourselves with a VBM package and you'll have the ballot ready for you to either drop in at one of our drop-off boxes or at the vote center. Drop-off boxes, there's going to be at least 90 of those drop boxes, okay? So the VBM team, again, like I said before, they've been doing this now for years. We already had 80% capacity in the past. It was a small 20% increase. They're more than ready for that. So we have a very robust VBM process here in Santa Clara County, okay? Please, next slide, Brent. Okay, here it is. So these boxes, okay, so they are throughout the county. VBA, vote by mail division, can actually give you more details. But if you are ever interested in having your own vote by mail box in your area, in your community, you know, please feel free to call our vote by mail division. And their phone number is 408-282-3018, and that will be Alfred Gonzalez, okay? And now, as for number two, how to find the vote center locations, okay? So that is something you can find on our website. Our website will always have the official listings and the most updated listing of all the vote centers. Even though in a matter of perhaps a month or two, we may have the final list and all of that information will be listed, okay? But in the past, especially when we had polling places, we always had some cancellations we had to deal with. So far for March, yeah, everything went fine, none of those problems. Now, if you also have any availability, any of your facilities that you're not using for the time being and you think will be a great option to have in the future for voting as a vote center, please contact April Bracamonte. She's one of our supervisors in operations. And if you contact April and say, hey, I have a place I think could be great for voting in the future, we'd be glad to go there, survey the location, look at the traffic patterns, look at the public transportation, make sure it's ADA compliant, make sure the travel path from the parking lot to the actual vote center is not too far, and then we probably will try to get that location as a vote center in the future, okay? And I say in the future because every time we contract one vote center, we contract for the whole election that we have for the rest of the year. So everything that you'll be going, you know, the sites that we had back in March should be the same sites that you're gonna have available to you in November. Of course, doesn't always work that way, but we try to make it that way, okay? Let me see what else. Okay. Um, hmm, okay. Okay. Next slide, please, Brent. Thank you. All right. So accessible voting technologies. So we have options. Okay. So for the for voters with disabilities, for example, as well as military and overseas voters, they will have this technology available to them, which is called the RAVBM. So this is the remote accessible vote by mail way of voting, which is basically something that we send out to our voters by mail. They'll be able to print those ballots, make their selections, and then mail them back to us. And when they mail their selections and we send them this way, let's say it's a voter with a disability, they'll have the necessary tools to make those selections, or family and friends to help to make those decisions. So this is the nature of our EVBM. Also, to make what's accessible for the technology, we have bilingual staff available at the vote centers, but also our equipment, okay? Even if a voter does not want the assistance of one of our bilingual staff to look at the ballots, if they choose to vote, for example, the touchscreen ballots, they'll see all the languages available that they can switch back and forth between English and any one of the 13 languages they want. Also, of course, technology-wise, when a voter comes to the ballot, unlike in the past, we'd have to provide the boxes of bilingual ballots. We don't have to do that anymore. We basically just provide them the blank pieces of paper, and then as the voter comes in a request for a specific language, let's say Spanish, then the vote center will print a paper ballot in the language that the voter has asked for, right? The biggest change, though, one of the biggest changes to accessible voting technology are the electronic poll books. We also call these the poll pads. The poll pads are basically an iPad, it's a tablet, and a tablet in which all the voter has to do is basically tell the name to the clerk. The clerk will find the voter's name, turn the tablet to you, and then you have to verify the information, sign it with your finger, and then at that moment, we'll be able to print a ballot for you in the language that you select, okay? So that's the beauty of the poll books, because they are now connected to our database, and then this way, it will allow you to vote anywhere where you are, okay? So again, let's say you live in Gilroy, but you're working today in Cupertino, you could actually vote in Cupertino and never miss out on your local ballot types. You'll be voting for all the things that you have to vote for in Gilroy, if that's where you live, okay? Regarding promotional materials, we do have lots of materials. We create these materials, for one, because we need to by law with VCA. Our VRD team has created plenty of informational materials that have to be sent out. Our outreach team has created many to promote voters' choice, and also to promote the different committees we have and work with. And of course, there's the PLA team, our Evelyn Mendez, who will talk after me. They provide, of course, they do all of they're the mouthpiece again of the ROV. They can provide you information and division updates and so forth. Okay, now beyond all of this, of course, promotional materials, we also have forms that we create to give to the outreach teams and also to the high school coordinators. We provide packets, state packets, federal packets, whatever it is that we can get from the state that is educational and it helps every community learn about what it is like to vote and why they should be voting. We'll provide that to those communities as long as we have them, okay? And that's pretty much this one. Is there another one on this one, Brent?
Yeah, that would be it.
That's pretty much, because so that's it. I'll be here, so if you have any questions, please email me. I'll also be here at the end of the conference, so contact me, send me a message or email me, but I'll be here to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
Thank you, Paolo. Is there any questions for Paolo while we're here now? Anyone? Okay. So I do want to give everyone a heads up. We are running a little long. We do have 3 more divisions to go through. And so my apologies. If you can hang in there, that would be great. If not, again, this is being recorded and will be online for everybody to review again, or sections of the recording. So next up is Evelyn Mendez. Hopefully she can get some energy going here. Very
I'm
good.
here. ROV, ROV.
Yay.
Yay. So thank you, Paolo, for that segue into the Public and Legislative Affairs Division. I am the manager of the team. These are the two people currently on our team. So if you need to get a hold of us, this is how you get a hold of us with any of our contact information, our media line or our website, or our email. So next. So these are some of the Public and Legislative Affairs Division is essentially the mouthpiece for the ROV. We are the team responsible for getting the word out on elections, to respond to any media requests or any inquiries from the public. Our team responds to all of the California Public Records Act requests. We have a lot of those, and everyone in the ROV helps us with all of that whenever anyone has any questions on that. These are just a sample of some of the vendors and all the logos of some of the vendors that we worked with in the March election. This was one of the largest campaigns the ROV has ever had. We had a lot of divisions helping us with translations, with any advertising that went out to any of these vendors. And we advertised on social media, so we'll keep going. Next, Brent. These were just some of the ad phases. As you guys probably know, throughout an election cycle, there's different times when the message needs to be changed. In the beginning, obviously, we needed to get the word out there on voter's choice. It was something new to the county, so we wanted to make sure everybody was familiar with that. We worked side by side with precinct ops to make sure that we got the message out there when the vote centers were open, how many were open, the hours of operation, everything that related to the vote center. So there were different phases of the campaign. We're going to do the same for November, so we'll get that out soon. We have a media kit that we're putting together that you can use to side by side with your message if you wanted to, the beginning of the election cycle, just get the word out that VCA is here. There's sometimes more people that vote, as you all know, in November than they do in a primary. But so we're going to have a media kit that you can use side by side to help get the message and the word out to anyone in regards to VCA or anything related to the election. So these are just some of the samples, and we'll share more of those as the election gets closer. Fran, next. So we did work side by side with some of the franchises. I don't know if some of you guys have driven down Coleman and saw the big billboard outside of the Earthquake Stadium, or driven past the San Jose Sharks. All three of these sports franchises worked with us. Levi Stadium was also one of the vote centers. Paolo's team worked with them to set up a vote center actually on site. So these are the big franchises in our county that we did some advertising with. And like I said, they advertised on their website, they advertised at their sporting events until COVID shut the sporting events down, but they still helped advertise in their email and on their website. So we had a great partnership with them. Next. You guys might have seen our ad on some of the buses, actually on all of the buses. Our ads were located on the outside of the buses as well as inside all of the buses. We were in the shopping carts, in the Korean markets. We worked with our bilingual staff to help translate all of our ad phases and all of our ad messages so we can get the word out in all the different languages. So this is just an example of what we did with the buses and then the message that was on the shopping cart. So if anybody sees anything on any of these messages, we often chase down buses. We're not supposed to, but we chase down buses so we can get a picture. Hey, everybody's really proud of the ads they see out there in the community. So if you see any of those, feel free to share. Next one. This is just some of our social media accounts that we have. We have a Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and Nextdoor. We often use, and we update those daily. We often use it throughout the campaign if we need to help our ballot layout or precinct ops division or any of the divisions that are hiring. I think Paolo mentioned it earlier that they hire 2,000, over 2,000 vote center workers. So we need help getting the word out there that there are jobs out in our county and we're hiring now and we need help and we need bilingual staff. So we'll use social media to get the word out there for all of our divisions. Okay. This is just a publication that News and Review put together for us. If you have access to the slides, you can actually flip on it. It's a flip book, and it's pretty much like a VCA guide, and it has all the dates and deadlines. It has information that almost everybody on this presentation talked about. You can use it. We have extra copies of it if you want to put it in any offices or help distribute it. All the newspaper outlets inserted them into their circulation of their newspapers. So this publication is out there. And like I said, if anyone wants any copies or they want to put them in their offices, they can feel free to give us a call and we can share so you can get the word out there. Okay. We conducted a lot of interviews. This is a lot of our staff inside and at the radio stations. A lot of our bilingual staff helped with interviews. So, I mean, we have access to almost every language, right? We're recruiting for all of the other languages, but we have access in case anyone has interviews. This is, yeah. Next. Our team is also responsible for reporting on what goes on in Sacramento, tracking the legislation, offering, like letting the different divisions know which bills and laws are coming up that will affect them. We share with the team and with the case a report on some of the up and coming hot bills that are coming up. So our team does that. Oh yeah, and Virginia just shared that our office delivered stacks to all of the city halls. So we did that, and we did it, and we just delivered stacks of those publications to all the libraries. So that publication that I showed is also in all the libraries. And that's it. Yay!
Thank you. Anybody have questions for Evelyn? Okay. No, we're going to move on to voter registration. Julia Signs.
Hi, everyone. Can you hear me?
Yes.
I think perfect. So it's great to see so many participants at this meeting. Thank you for being here today. My name is Julia Signs, Election Division Coordinator of the Voter Registration Division. Unfortunately, I'm having issues with my camera, so I will not be able to use the video feature today. Joining us today is also Janora Blow, who is the division's election process supervisor. While we're both new to our roles, we are both very eager to serve and work with the jurisdictions. The Voter Registration Division is responsible for voter file maintenance, such as adding, updating, and canceling registered voters, customer service, and signature verification on petitions and provisional and conditional envelopes. Next slide, or this slide actually.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Today I will briefly mention DMV automatic registration and then dive into petitions. Federal law requires the California DMV to provide customers the opportunity to register to vote while completing a driver's license or identification card or change of address transaction. Voters will automatically be registered to vote unless the voter chooses to opt out of the automatic voter registration. If the voter is already registered to vote, the registration at the DMV will update their existing registration. Since the program launched in 2018, we've seen an increase in our online registrations by more than 100%. Next slide, please. Within 30 working days of the petition filing date, of the filing of a petition, ROV will verify the validity of the signatures filed with our office using a random sample technique. ROV will verify 500% or 3% of the number of signatures filed, whichever is greater. Next slide, please. If after verification, the number of projected valid signatures shows less than 95% of the number of signatures required to qualify, the petition will be found insufficient. If the total number of projected valid signatures is more than 110% of the number of signatures required, the petition will be found sufficient. If after the random sampling technique is complete and the number of projected valid signatures shows between 95 to 110%, ROV will have 60 working days from the date of filing to complete a full count, which means we will verify every signature or until the number of signatures required is met. Next slide, please. After the completion of signature verification, Our staff will perform a second review or second pass of any signatures found invalid during the first review. During the second review, any of those invalid signatures found valid will be updated prior to certification. If after both the first and second review the petition is found insufficient, our office will certify the results as such. At that point, the proponents of the insufficient petition may examine the petition pursuant to Government Code, I believe it's 6254.5. Any questions?
This is Shannon. I just would add that thank you for mentioning the first and second pass, and sometimes we're able to do more passes to confirm invalid signatures when time allows. Just wanted to mention that.
Yes, definitely. There's times when we'll do a third or fourth pass if time allows and if required. Absolutely.
Thank you, Julia.
Thank you.
No other questions, and we'll move on to vote by mail. Any other questions? Okay, Alfred, you're up.
All right. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Alfred. I'm the Election Division Coordinator for Vote by Mail, and my colleague Pam Hamilton, she's the Election Process Supervisor. You probably get an email from her requesting for the locations. So next slide. I believe everybody knows that Santa Clara County is no postage required, way ahead of the state. Now the whole state of California there's no requirements of postage. Ballot must be postmarked before election day. So we are getting all the ballots on election day, and we have 3 days to go back to the post office and pick up all the ballots. If the ballots are postmarked on election day or prior to that, those ballots are going to be counted. And vote centers, we have drop boxes to our vote centers, and our drop box. This is where I will always, every time we have a chance, with all the city clerks, thank you so much for assisting us, all 15 city halls. Thank you very much for all the things that you've done for us. And I'm hoping that for the November, everyone's are willing to open their locations, and we'll have them as our Dropbox locations too. And next page. If anybody, in case that they need to request for another set of ballots, in case they made a mistakes, they can always call our office at the ROV toll-free 866-43-VOTE, or you could just email vote by mail, and we'll happy to resend them a copy, another vote by mail ballot. And for requests for vote by mail, we have a cutoff of 7 days before election day. For that reason is we have to make sure that when we mail them a ballot, they'll get it on time and they have enough time to return it back to us. In case that it passed the 7 days before election, our office is open 29 days prior to the election. They could come and pick up the replacement ballots, and we're also open on election day from 7 to 8 p.m. Next page. Registration. Vote centers are also available for all the voters. I believe we have going to have another 100 vote centers for November, and they can request for another ballots at any vote center. I believe I mentioned that the Santa Clara County is all vote by mail. Everybody gets vote by mail, and for any reason they made a mistake or they need a reissue, they can always go to vote center or in our office. Accessible for individuals with disabilities. I mean, Paulo already did mention about remote accessible vote by mail. These are being offered for voter with disabilities and overseas voters. They can print out their ballot. They can vote electronically, but they actually, their ballots are not going to be received electronically, but they have to print it out and mail it back to us or fax it to us. But if you have any questions about the RABBM, we're happy to assist you on that part. Other than that, that's what we have for vote by mail.
Fred, I received a raised hand from someone from 408-893-8588. If you all want to, I don't know who that is.
Yeah, go ahead. I'll take any questions.
They are asking, how do you notify a registered voter when they move out of the county?
How do you notify if a registered voter move out of the county?
Can you elaborate that question? How do you notify if a registered voter moves out of the county?
Or is it, how are we notified if someone moves out?
That would be a voter registration question. Julia, you want to speak to VoteCal?
Yes, so there's a variety of sources that will inform us whether or not a voter has moved out of county. We usually receive third-party information either from the post office or from a DMV that the voter has moved out of the county. And in some cases, we also have the voter who actually notifies us and informs us that they've moved out of the county. Now, if another voter happens to re-register in another county in the state, there's a VoteCal statewide database that will kind of run a check against all the records in the state, looking to see if there's another record that meets the same criteria. If it finds a match or a potential match, well, if it finds a high confidence match, it'll automatically cancel the registration in our record, in our county. If it finds a potential match, it will send a message to our office for us to review to determine whether or not the voter is the same person, in which case we will then answer yes if it's true and then cancel the record. I hope that answers your question.
And the other caller, I'm going to unmute the caller with the phone number 8588 now so you can answer or ask the question. Go ahead, caller. Oops. I think they might have. I think they might be gone now. I don't see them online anymore. Are there any other questions? Okay.
Yeah, I have a general question. I'm not sure if this is for the last speaker or just for your office in general. Could you address when cities and other jurisdictions are going to receive the final election results? A lot of us got used to in 2018 that you all were granted 30 days for the certified election results, but I remember reading that in March, due to COVID, there was a lot of extra time granted. Is that likely in November? And when do you think you'll have final results for us?
You want me to answer?
Please, Shannon.
Okay. So like you said, Mary, hi, Mary. We currently have the 30 days by law. And yes, the governor did an executive order extending it 21 days in the March election. which then extends for a voter to cure their ballot with a missing signature or a mismatched signature. So, you know, we took the whole 21 days so voters could change their ballot signature if needed. So today, I do not know the answer beyond the 30 days. My initial things that I was hearing a couple weeks ago on a call from the state was no extension, but it has not been finalized. There's still legislation out there proposed that we're waiting to see what ends up in it. You know, will they extend the voter registration deadline? Will they extend the cures time? Will they extend the canvas deadline? So as of today, I don't know anything outside of the 30 days. If we do find out, we definitely will let you know, because all jurisdictions are anxiously awaiting their certification documents. That's all I know as of now.
Okay. Thank you, Shannon. So if there aren't any more questions, this actually concludes our presentation. Thank you everyone for hanging in there, coming to, you know, hear all of our wonderful division managers speak of their divisions, and thank you for those division managers to come online and everyone else to support us here. If you do have questions, again, please feel free to reach out to any one of us. We're here to help. And the materials should be online, hopefully within about a week, if not sooner. Okay, and I will address some of the other things that came up that people were asking information about as soon as possible this week too. So thank you again, and we're done. Sorry for this going so long too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
I learned this. Round of applause.
Nice job, Christina.
I don't see any questions for precinct operations. If you see any, let me know. Okay.
Can we,
Looks like there may be only one or two participants outside the ROV. If any of them have any questions, it's a great time to ask since everybody else is gone.
yeah. And I think the chat questions are preserved too, so we'll go back there and try and address anything that got missed.
Okay.
It's going to take a little while for it to fully upload.
Okay, since the last one or two people from outside our office don't seem to have any questions, I will go ahead and sign off and get on to my 4 o'clock call for my meeting. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, Shannon. Thank you, Virginia. Thank you, Mary, also for being here. Just saw you were there. Bye, everyone. everyone.